Who are you? Why are you here? And how come my face is blurred?
Hey, I'm chriswilmshurst, and hopefully you clicked on this video to learn how to blur faces and objects in your videos. And by popular demand, just like last time, I'll be showing you how to do it in 4 video editing programs, including LumaFusion on the iPad. But before we kick things off, if this video helps you in any way, please consider subscribing and leaving a comment below, letting me know it did. It really does go a long way in helping this channel grow, and it shows that this content is helpful. So with that out of the way, let's start things off with Premiere Pro. Grab your clip and throw it on the timeline. Now head to the Effects tab at the top, and in the Effects menu, select Blur, then Gaussian Blur. Now we're going to select the mask tool to draw our shape around the target. As I'm tracking a face, I'll use the circle tool, but if you're blurring something like a number plate or object, you could use the rectangle or pen tool to create a custom shape. Next up, we're going to change the intensity of the blur in the effects properties. This will include the strength of the blur, the fall off, and direction. That looks good to me. Some might say it's an improvement. Now here comes the fun part. If the subject is moving, simply click this play button here and Premiere Pro will analyze every frame and track the mask to this subject. Now sometimes it's not perfect, so if it does fail, you can go back and manually adjust each keyframe, or do it all manually if you prefer to do it yourself. But 90% of the time, Premiere Pro does a really good job. One thing I should note is that if you do shoot in a log format like I do, you might want to color grade your footage first. This is because Premiere Pro tracking seems to work better when there is more color and contrast applied to your footage. Another thing is, if you want to add any additional blurs, drag another blur effect onto the clip rather than drawing an additional mask. This is because the moment you start to draw another mask, the entire clip will blur until you finish drawing, so it's much easier to add a new blur effect. That was really easy, right? I use this primarily for my property videos, where I blur pictures on the wall, number plates, and any screens that may be on in the background. You never know what sensitive details might be around. But now that's out of the way, let's switch over to Davinci Resolve. Once you've placed your clip in the timeline, head over to the Color tab. Right-click here and create a new node and link it to the original node. Now it's time to add a power window, which is essentially another fancy way of saying mask. Place it over your subject and then head over to the tracking window. And just like Premiere Pro, we have the ability to automatically track the mask in the video. Hit the play button and wait for it to do its magic. Now if for some reason it loses tracking or it is overlapped, you can go back and add manual keyframes using the keyframe tool, and by manually moving it around you can get the perfect fit. Now once your tracking is all done, click on the blur tab and simply ramp up these 3 bars under radius until you get your desired amount of blur. That's how you do it in Davinci Resolve. Are you starting to see a pattern develop now? The process involves drawing a mask, then applying it to a subject and tracking it, and then adding your blur. So let's repeat this and head on over to Final Cut Pro, where it has a cool effect which looks like it's straight from a police chase TV show. Start by popping your clip on the timeline and then bring up the effects panel and search for Sensor. Drag this onto your clip. In the effect properties, you can change everything from the type of blur, the intensity, and the fall off. But unlike Resolve and Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro doesn't have motion tracking built in, so you'd have to buy a third-party plugin to do it that way. But fortunately, it's really easy, but a bit more time consuming to use a keyframe tool. So to do this, find your start point on the timeline and then hit the diamond next to center in your effects panel. Now move along your timeline, and every time you move the blur, it will add a keyframe. If you want to see where your keyframes are, press Ctrl+V or go to Clip and click Show Video Animation. Unfortunately, this isn't as smooth as auto tracking, but if you don't want to spend money on a third-party plugin, this is the way to do it. With Final Cut Pro out of the way, it's time to show iPad editors some love. And if you thought Final Cut Pro was a lot of manual work, just wait until you see how we do it in LumaFusion. Start by dragging your clip onto your timeline and duplicating it by clicking this icon. Now double tap on the top track and head over to the Effects tab. Tap on this water drop icon to access the motion blur options and then select your blur of choice. Then begin by messing around with the intensity until it suits you. Now click on the Frame and Fit tab and head over to the crop function. Are you starting to see where this is going? Well, if you don't, hold on. We have to crop the clip to the area we want to cover. Unfortunately, we're limited to rectangles and squares as shapes to use, but you can apply a bit of edge softening. Now here comes the part I warned you about, the manual work. Click the keyframe tab and go through every single frame and adjust the crop as you go. If your subject has a defined path, like a head moving to the left or right, you could space out the keyframes, which would be a lot less work, but it's always good practice to go frame by frame to get it done right. But in the end, with a little bit of hard work, you can achieve effects just like this. And that's LumaFusion. It's not the most fun or quickest way, but it does do the job, and I can't wait for LumaFusion to implement masking in the future. So there you have it. Which was your favourite way of doing it? I love how simple and effective Premiere Pro handles it, and auto tracking is such a time saver. Leave a comment and let me know, and if you could, please check out my tutorials and reviews, and I'll see you in the next one.